We are rolling. Hi, I'm Dr. Dave here at Shores Wellness Solutions, the Natural Health and Wellness Center. And today we're going to be talking about the anti-inflammatory diet. And this is an important aspect to talk about because if you look at the SAD diet, Standard American Diet, it's very inflammatory. And so as we look at that diet, we're going to be picking it apart a little bit today and talking about ways to decrease inflammation. There's so much inflammation out there that's treated as other diseases or disease processes. We forget a lot of times about the inflammation. So I'd like to welcome you today, and we're going to spend about the next half hour together, and I hope you enjoy this, and maybe 20 minutes, who knows. All right, so when we have inflammation, right, we're eating most of our inflammation. And we understand that when there's an injury, there's going to be inflammation. And inflammation from an injury is good. You say, what do you mean it's good? If we don't experience the inflammatory process, we can't heal. There are studies that go back to World War II, some horrific ones, but ultimately the results were good as far as teaching us. If we stop inflammation, the body can't heal. I'll give you for instance, somebody with a backache or headaches or whatever, and they take anti-inflammatories that reduce the symptoms. In the short term, it may be good. And you notice I say may, I'm not saying it is, but it may be good for that person to help reduce the inflammation and they'll feel better. But every time you take that anti-inflammatory and reduce the inflammation, you're teaching the body not to heal. You're having the body to prevent healing because in stopping the inflammatory process, the body says, hey, I don't have any inflammation, I got nothing to heal. And so it's pretty interesting how we can stop that and how the allopathic community has allowed us to do that. And I don't even know if they understand that you're not supposed to stop the inflammation. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying if you're suffering with inflammation, lay there, sit there, whatever, in excruciating pain. You definitely want to ice. Why ice? Ice calms things down. It's cool. It calms it down. It dampens the inflammation. Heat sometimes, many times, might feel better. But what will happen deep in the body is when you heat something, it'll continue to swell internally once you remove the heat. And that'll compound the problem, slow the healing process. Why? Because of inflammation. But if you ice it down, it cools it, it calms it, and reduces the inflammation so you can get to healing. You never see a top athlete, go out there on a Sunday, like tomorrow night, right? Go out there on a Sunday and then have an injury and sit on the sidelines with a heating pad. No, it's always ice, calm the inflammation. But today we're going to be talking about foods, inflammatory foods and anti-inflammatory foods, because that's so important with us as everyday people, not top athletes. Well, them too, but it's important with us to know things that we're eating that can cause different disease processes in our body. And so the first thing is, what's inflammation? So inflammation, as we just mentioned, it's a normal response in the body. The stronger the insult to the body, the stronger the inflammatory process. If I hit my thumb with a hammer, ow. Anyway, if I hit my thumb with a hammer, what's going to happen is it's going to turn red and swell. That's an inflammatory process. And if I just leave it, it'll throb. Yeah, you've all done something like that. It'll throb and it'll hurt for a couple days, maybe a week or so. But if I hit my thumb with a hammer, right, and I ice it down and add some compression to it, it's not going to swell. The ice is going to calm the inflammation. And so now the only thing left for it to do is heal. Awesome. But now let's look internally with our bodies, right? When we eat things that are inflammatory, what do we do? Swallow an ice pack? No, we can't do that. Put some compression from our intestinal tract from the inside out? No, we can't do that. But we need to stop eating the foods that cause insult to our bodies that'll help reduce the inflammatory process. Now, here's some things that are really important. Inflammatory diseases include the following: type 2 diabetes, cancer, coronary heart disease, right? Arrhythmias, arthritis, chronic pain. Pain should really resolve within 7 to 10 days. And if it doesn't, and it's chronic, all it is acute pain every single day. That's telling us that you have an inflammatory process, right? Congestive heart disease, hypertension, stroke, congenital cardiovascular disease, digestive disorders, sleep problems, fatigue, arthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. These are inflammatory conditions. These are conditions, that's right. All these things that we're discussing, they are reversible. when you start doing the right things for the body, you stop the inflammation going on, and when you stop and reduce that inflammation, what happens? The body can actually start to heal. And so it's so important to understand what inflammatory diseases or disease processes are so that you can start to reverse them and get the body well. Now, one of my favorites, we take in the body a gland, and the glands communicate with cells, and the gland's made up of cells. The body's made up of cells. We're 60 trillion cells. So anyway, the gland's going to communicate with the cell, and the cell's going to communicate backwards to the gland. It's kind of like you go home, you walk in the house and you say, "Hey, honey, I'm home." You expect to hear somebody respond to you, right? You're the gland, your significant other is a cell. You say hello, you expect to get hello back. Okay, and so how does that happen in the body? Well, in the body, the gland's going to make hormones, which is going to go down and communicate with the cell. When the cell receives the hormones, and cells have each cell, 20,000 receptor sites on it for glands. Each cell, times 60 trillion cells. That's a lot, right? And so then the cell communicates back to the gland, "I received the message. Honey, I'm home. Glad you made it." We hope that's the response. But then something's going to occur in our life. Something's going to occur that's going to stop that communication. When you arrive home, maybe your significant other's wearing noise-canceling headphones. Maybe they're out taking the dog for a walk. Who knows? But they're not there. They're not in earshot to hear you, right? So the communication doesn't go back. So then what happens is the gland, you getting home, you're going to start getting a little louder. "Hey, I'm home," but still no answer. And as you continue to produce more hormones, good, we in our bodies start to create potential energy. And potential energy in our bodies is what? Right, it's fat accumulation. So gland's supposed to communicate with the cell communicates back to the gland, thank you. If there's something blocking that, those noise-canceling headphones, what happens? The gland keeps overproducing the hormone, and then the hormones get collected as potential energy or fat somewhere in the body. You got belly fat, it's not you, it's your hormones, if you want some of that in detail. But that's ultimately what's happening as we're creating this crisis, this inflammatory process. And so the question is that little red line, those noise-canceling headphones in our bodies, what's going on? Well, those are endocrine disruptors. Endocrine disruptors are things that disrupt the endocrine system. Remember, 20,000 receptor sites on a cell not able to receive the message. And what could cause that? And I know it's kind of small on the type here, but it's pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, fungicides, plastic, heavy metal, alcohol, sugar, all sweeteners, vaccinations, yes, I said the V word, chemicals, trans fats, hydrogenated oils, belly fat itself, right? Tobacco, what else we have in here? Heavy metals, right? Not country western, but heavy metals. And all drugs will do that. So these things are endocrine disruptors. They disrupt the endocrine system, and our bodies end up in an altered process, one of which is inflammation. And with inflammation, food has a lot to do with that, okay? There are anti-inflammatory foods, and we're going to start that now, but there's also inflammatory foods. So anti-inflammatory foods in your diet is so important. And you notice up here, you start to see some avocado, some nuts, legumes, some olive oil in here, tomatoes, things like that, some good omega-3 fish that's in there. And so let's backtrack for a little bit. We go back 100-something years ago, the American diet was pretty good, but 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago, it really started turning. The dawn of the 20th century, it started turning to more convenience foods. And look where we are now. Most of you watching this can remember growing up. If you went out for fast food once, maybe twice a week, to a restaurant or something, that was a lot. But how many times do people go out, the average family go out for food these days? It's quite often. It's more than that once a week that did as kids. And so with the anti-inflammatory foods, there we go. With the anti-inflammatory foods, a little ahead of myself here, as we eat those, it starts to settle down the inflammation. Okay? And so we want to eat a diet that is full of whole foods. It's so important. When we get into, we have some leafy greens here, the lettuces, the spinach, kale is fantastic, collards. I know some go, "Oh, I don't like kale." Fine, have something else. There's so many different vegetables, and I always recommend to patients, when you go out to the store, try something new. Don't buy pounds of it, just buy a small sampling of it. So when you get home, prepare it in a nice fashion that will seem palatable to you, and try that. Then if you like it, next time you go to the store, you can buy a larger quantity. But fresh fruits, easy on the fruits though, because remember, fruits have fructose in them, and fructose is a direct burden, yes, a burden on the liver. So everyone likes, oh, I have a lot of fruit, I have 10, 12 pieces. Not good, not good. Fruit should be 1 to 2 pieces a day, about 1/3 the amount of vegetables, 1/3 the servings amount. And so vegetables is a cup per serving, fruit is 1/3 of a cup per serving. So if you're having 3 servings of vegetables a day, you can get away with a serving of fruit each day. The best fruit would be berries, apples, and melons. Those are the top 3 for anti-inflammatory, keeping sugar levels low. Okay, but you want to make sure that you're eating more anti-inflammatory foods like the legumes and the nuts. And you say, well, I'm allergic to nuts. Okay, fine, don't eat the nuts. But there's so much other things to have. And so this is a good sampling of things that we can do. Now there is one herb that's been studied more than any other herbs. Can you guess it? Yeah, it's turmeric. It's been studied more than any other herb on earth. There are almost 1,000 articles about turmeric, 1,000 studies about turmeric. And it is amazing, okay? We use in our office, we use many herbs, turmeric forte. Why turmeric forte? You'll hear a lot about turmeric, on the internet and other places, talking to people, and they're telling you about taking it. But we want something that is most bioavailable. Most forms of turmeric, when you go out and you purchase them, it's very hard for the body to ingest it, to be assimilated into the body. So you're taking supplements, turmeric being one of them, and what's it doing? It's passing through you. So even though you didn't spend much on it, you're still not getting the benefits from it. Then you start to read and understand, well, turmeric, if it's mixed with black pepper, that increases absorption. That's a true statement. Our turmeric doesn't have black pepper. It has fenugreek ribosomes in there. Why? Well, the fenugreek helps to increase its absorption, like the black pepper. But the difference is, when we use black pepper in the turmeric, that'll cause the liver to, in a sense, shut down your body's usage of the turmeric. So you increase the absorption, but you're shutting down the use of that absorption. And so that's not a good thing. It's kind of like getting a car, a new car that works great, you put it in the garage, you shut the garage door, then the garage is locked and you can't get to the car. What's the point? Turmeric, when it is mixed with ribosomes, fenugreek ribosomes, increases the absorption, but then it stimulates the use and the function of it. In fact, our turmeric can actually cross the blood-brain barrier where most can't. And if turmeric is with black pepper, you definitely don't want that to cross the blood-brain barrier. With the fenugreek, yes you do. And so it really helps to squelch or calm that inflammatory process. And I know some of you out there are saying, well, I have turmeric with black pepper and it's calming my inflammation. That's correct. I'm not saying that it won't work. I'm saying the best option is turmeric that is mixed with fenugreek. Okay? And so it's just really great anti-inflammatory herb. Now, when we get into, and when you're taking turmeric, okay, just so you know, many herbs, is actually about 25 times more absorbable and usable than any other brand that's out there. So that's something to keep in mind. So yeah, it might be a little more expensive for the bottle, but you're getting so many more benefits from it. And when you're getting turmeric forte with patients here, when we start working with them with inflammatory processes, they might need 4, 5, or 6 a day. Once that inflammation's under control, and we might see 2 or 3 a day, sometimes even 1. But we have to get that inflammation under control first. But this is really important. In getting the inflammation under control, anti-inflammatory foods for life. And I know right now somebody said, oh my gosh, I haven't had anything green in years, I can't do that. It's okay, breathe. Look at that, we just calmed down some inflammation by settling down, dropping our cortisol levels. Isn't that awesome? But when you look at fruits and vegetables for life, it's not about a diet, a new diet. It's about a lifestyle change. And it's a process. It's a word we use all the time. My Canadian friends like to say process, but it's a process, or process if you're across the river here. And so in this process, we want to decrease inflammation. So let's start it. Where are you at right now? Okay, for me, I eat vegetables and a piece of fruit each day. That's where I'm at. But if you're not there, that's fine. You always have to start somewhere. So what I say is start incorporating vegetables first. And how do you do that? Pick a meal, not usually like dinner, and add 1 to 2 servings of vegetables if you're a non-veg person. And so what you're going to do is make a salad, okay? And when you make a salad, don't just grab things and put it in because that's what you've heard other people do. Look up some different salad recipes. Call our office. My wife is fantastic at putting together things for salads, but we've accumulated some recipes that'd be really nice, and you can pick and choose what you want and say, hey, you know, goat cheese and spinach salad, that sounds really good with walnuts. And some of you out there going, ooh, and some of you out there going, I'd like to try it. And it's a matter of the process. But start with a salad, or maybe a sweet potato instead of a baked white potato. And just slowly start incorporating vegetables into the diet. As you start incorporating vegetables into the diet, what you're going to see is you're going to start getting rid of some of the inflammatory foods that you're eating. You say, well, what's a good example of an inflammatory food? Here we go. Bread, pasta, cereal, biscuits, muffins, pancakes, waffles, donuts, bagels, cookies, cake, candy, pizza, empanadas, roti, and naan. And I know you're now saying, wow, well, what the heck can I eat if I don't eat that? Right. If that's where you're at, that's okay. Start adding a vegetable or two, okay? And as you do that, you'll slowly start to slow the inflammatory process. Eventually, you'll get to where it actually stops. We have had patients that have been with us for years, but it didn't take years to get to this point where they come in with walkers or canes because of the arthritic conditions and the decay going on in their body because of the inflammation. And as they change their diets, and they get on good whole food supplements, and they see the process, within weeks they start to notice the inflammation settling down. They're not using their medication to calm the inflammation. That is, they're off their anti-inflammatories. And then within months, you see them start to lose the canes and the walkers as they start to walk upright. And you see the inflammatory processes in their body really start to reverse. And the ones that stay with us for a longer period of time, where we check them once or twice a month and balance out their supplements and keep track of them, we actually see the inflammatory disease processes that they may have had reversing themselves. And it's really incredible to watch people go from ill health, where they think and may even have belief that they're destined for a wheelchair, where now all of a sudden they realize they're destined to be active right up until their last breath. And that's what we want. So anti-inflammatory foods for life. It's not about a week or two. It's about making these changes over time to reduce the inflammation. If you look here, yes, there's some jalapenos in there, some broccoli, asparagus, some peppers, lemons. Lemons are fantastic, and limes really helping to flush out the liver. Well, why would you want to do that? Because a lot of inflammatory metabolites build up in the liver, and it's really important to clear that out. And so as you start to eat these things and start to notice a change and a difference, it really makes a great change in the quality of life. We can look at beans and pastas and whole grains. Whoa, breaks, wait a minute, Doc, you said no pasta. That's right. We're not looking at wheat pasta. We're looking at the alternatives of pasta, like a black bean or a chickpea pasta, something like that, okay? And in doing it, it's not every day. But I have pasta every day. Okay, if that's where you're at, let's work on changing the pasta over to something that is less inflammatory. And then maybe even looking at getting a spiralizer or a veganator, which you can spiralize the vegetables, like a squash or a turnip or a butternut squash, something like that. That's what's come to mind. Oh, there we go, zucchini and things. And where you can spiralize them, and those can be your alternative noodles as you change over. You can still have your sauce, whatever you want to put in the sauce, except sugar, and work on changing that over. But you can really make some great changes. Again, it's about over time. It's about understanding. And that's why we're here at Shores Wellness Solutions. That's what we do to help you with that. We can look at fish, fats, and soy. Wait a minute. We teach our patients not to eat soy. Soy, I find, has other ill health benefits, particularly in the United States, because most of it is GMO. It's very hard to find non-GMO soy, and you also want it fermented. So stay low on the end of soy, but fats and fish. Fats are really good for us. Eating fat will not make our body fat, but understand fats. We're not looking at the blooming onion and the fried foods. We're we're looking at more the olive oil, the coconut oil, the avocado oil, avocados themselves, nuts, seeds, those types of things. Butter, yes, I said butter. Butter has a lot of health qualities for you. And those are the types of fats that we're looking to consume, the real ones, the natural ones. When we look at fish, fish is really important. And I know some people say, oh, I don't like, listen, try different fishes. Remember, small portion, try it, cook it away, you might feel you like it. If you don't like it, is it because of how you cooked it, or is it because of the flavor of the fish itself? And there's many types of fish, right? Different seafood. You can look at lobster, you can look at crab, you can look at shrimp. And I know, whoa, the cholesterol. You can't eat enough cholesterol to raise your cholesterol level. That's saved for another workshop. So don't worry about the cholesterol when you're eating these things. Okay. And I know some of you out there going, well, my triglycerides are through the roof. Really? Stop eating fruit. You'll watch it come down. And some of you say, well, my cholesterol is high. Quick on cholesterol. Cholesterol is a protective mechanism in our bodies to protect us from inflammation. If we have inflammation in the body, we're going to see cholesterol levels rise. Stress causes inflammation. Stress raises cortisol. Higher cortisol means inflammation in our body processes, which means higher cholesterol. And so if your cholesterol level is high, it's not because you're deficient in some type of statin, it's because you have an inflammatory process that's not being addressed. And so really important. So fish, salmon is excellent. Mackerel, pollock, cod, those are just a few of the things that you can look at and have. Here in the Midwest, I know perch is very big here, lake perch, and so I've had that. It's absolutely delicious. Okay, spices, selenium, coffee, tea, and oh yes, red wine, right? Because you can't be in the Midwest and Michigan without having a glass of wine. Not on a regular basis, and it's a glass. Okay, so spices. We talked about turmeric, and there's curry, and there's garlic and onion, and so there's different spices that we can use, and red pepper, black pepper, things that calm inflammation. Selenium is fantastic at doing that. Selenium is a vitamin, and so we can use selenium, it's an element, and we can use the selenium to help with anti-inflammatory. Coffee, coffee alternatives. I like Ticino. Ticino, it's a chicory root base, and so it gives you the coffee-like flavors, but it's not the coffee with the heavy caffeine, so be careful. A friend of mine, a little side story, a friend of mine whose dad worked for a coffee company pretty high up, and he remembers as a little kid, he'd go with his dad to work once in a while, and they had three types or three quality or grades of coffee beans. You had the high grade, the middle grade, and the low grade. He said, well, the high grade was always used for the espresso. The middle grade was used for regular coffee, and then the low grade bean is for your decaf. He said, they're going to chemically treat it anyway. Why do that with the good coffee beans, right? So just think about that a little bit. But use more of the coffee alternatives. In tea, you want to look at a green tea or some herbal teas. And red wine. Red wine does have some anti-inflammatory properties, okay? But remember, the alcohol also is inflammatory. So there's a little trade-off there. And so a glass of red wine once in a while, not a big deal. A glass or two or three every day, well, that's a big deal. So be careful. I caution you on that. Okay? Now some inflammatory foods, right? Besides bread, pasta, cereal, biscuits, and all those things, right? What else is inflammatory? A little side note on that. A lot of patients will come into us, or people that I meet will say, well, I'm gluten-free. I never said anything about gluten, because wheat isn't the only thing that has gluten. Gluten is to wheat as your hair is to your head. If I shave your head, you're bald temporarily till it grows back, okay, but you don't have any hair. If we take the gluten away from the wheat, we still have the wheat, we just don't have wheat with gluten. And so when I talk about wheat, it's wheat, not gluten, it's wheat, okay? And that's really important to know, because patients will come in and say, well, I'm eating gluten-free bread. Never said that. I say get rid of the bread, okay? Really important. Some other things to avoid. Dairy. Dairy is very inflammatory. And now we start to look at this and say, dairy is inflammatory, and wheat, grains actually, are inflammatory. And why? Well, let's examine how they're grown. With our grains, particularly wheat is treated 10 times chemically from planting to harvest, government subsidized. 3 times of those 10 chemical treatments are with glyphosate. You say, well, what's glyphosate? It's Roundup. That's all it is. that's the chemical name of Roundup, is glyphosate. And so when you eat the wheat, you're getting the Roundup into your body, the glyphosate, and we don't really know and understand the effects of that in the human body yet. And it can affect everybody differently, and it really throws off the digestive tract. People are very sensitive to it. And so when you get rid of the wheat and stop the glyphosate, it makes a difference. In fact, the wine industry in the United States is having a little issue with glyphosate now also. And so be careful where you're getting your wines if you're going to have a glass of wine. And so you'll notice that. You'll say, I had a glass of wine, I got a headache. There you go. And everyone thinks it's sulfites. Could be, but look at how you feel after that glass of wine when you have that occasionally. You may need to change your brand. And so wheat, because of how it's grown with all the chemicals, right? The chemical processing. Then we have dairy. Why dairy? Well, milk from a cow is good for what? It's good for baby cows. It's good for calves. Helps a 90-pound calf when it's born to grow up and be a 200-pound heifer or cow. And that's what milk is good for. We can enzymatically process it and make different types of cheeses depending on what enzymes we use and what cultures we're doing it with. But when we look at cheese can be very inflammatory, or dairy products as a whole can be very inflammatory in the body, particularly milk. And when I was a kid, that's when they started removing the fat from milk, right? Because, oh my gosh, you can't have too much fat. And they started giving us white water, 2%, 1%, even skim milk. Why? Because all skim milk is basically white sugar, liquid sugar. Because when you drink it, you don't have the milk fats in there to slow down the absorption rate of the lactose, and it actually can make you even more sick or more inflammatory than whole milk. And so look at these different things if you're consuming them, they're in your diet. Really important. So what do we get into, right? Get rid of the grains, get rid of the dairy. Kind of sounds like we're talking about the Mediterranean diet, right? The Mediterranean diet is fantastic. It really is. Eat like the people do in the Mediterranean. There are many Mediterranean diets out on the internet that you can download and look at and choose the one that's best for you. No, don't. They're knockoffs, okay? The one I like the best has to do with Melvin Page. Melvin Page has a phase 1, phase 2 food plan. Phase 1 is more restrictive, and it's a food plan that is like the Mediterranean diet. It's probably the closest, and the purpose of that is to eat your way back to health. And whether you have endocrine issues, whether you have inflammatory processes and degeneration, regardless of what you have, you want to eat Mediterranean-like to calm the inflammation until the body balances out and gets back to health. Once back to health, then you can go to the phase 2. But what's the point of this, right? The point of this is we've eaten for many years, decades even, in generations, family, passing down their dietary habits to family members. We had a patient in this morning telling us about, a heart issue that she has, and her son has it, and her brother has it, and her father had it. And I said, all eat similarly? Yes, we do. There you go. Not getting the nutrients in the body that you need through diet, and at the same time depleting the body of nutrients that you need, which for them led to, or is leading to, heart issues, so to speak. And so with the heart issues, you're looking at a depletion of B vitamins. Please don't go to the store and buy a B complex, all right? That's equivalent to going to the auto parts store across the street, buying a steering wheel and showing everybody a brand new car. It's a fragment, it's a piece. You really need whole food supplements. That's the best. And so when we get into anti-inflammatory diets, the Mediterranean is the best. Lots of nuts and seeds. Okay, when I say lots, I don't mean cups upon cups of it. A quarter to a half a cup. Why? Lots of calories. Weight gain is never about calories until it's about excessive calories. And so it's so important to make sure that you're watching that. We had a patient years ago doing great. When she came in, we put her on a Mediterranean diet, doing fantastic. And all of a sudden, she had dropped half the weight she wanted. She wanted to lose 30 pounds, down 15. All of a sudden, she starts gaining weight back. And for the next 6 weeks or so, she put the 15 back on. And when we finally broke down her diet and we looked at everything, it looked great, we started looking at the quantity. She was doing 1.5 to 2 cups of nuts a day. That was 1,500 to 2,000 calories. And she was petite, and so with her body structure, she gained the weight. When she limited nuts to a quarter cup a day, weight came down because then we handled the calorie issue. okay? But we want to look at those things. Well, what are we doing? What are we eating that are anti-inflammatory? Well, most vegetables, careful of the nightshades, the potatoes, the peppers, the tomatoes, eggplant, those can be inflammatory, so be careful of the nightshades. But you want to look at the phase 1 Melton Page diet, really important. So some of my favorite anti-inflammatory meals, right? What can we do? There's a lot out there. Salads. I love a good salad with a small piece of fish or chicken on there. Really fantastic. I don't need to eat, the whole chicken, but about 4 ounces really works well for me, 4 to 6 ounces. We can look at some mango in there. We can look at some cucumber and tomato salad with some fresh herbs and some olive oil. When I look at vegetables, I really like a salad. For me, if I'm going to make a salad, I like more than 10 things in the salad. Maybe 2 types of lettuce, some turnip, carrot, radish will go in there. Maybe I'll throw in some walnuts, olive oil, balsamic vinegar, maybe a little bit of mustard mixed in with the oil and vinegar to give it a different flavor to it. Why mustard? Well, there's no sugar added to the mustard, and usually mustard is just the mustard seed and some spices, and that's how you get the flavoring out of it. And so those are some really great recipes to do. Different squash and zucchini, make a good homemade marinara sauce, and take some spiralized butternut squash and mix it with that. Or maybe a spaghetti squash where you scrape it out after cooking it in the oven and it looks like spaghetti, and put some good marinara on there. And so there's a lot of great things that we can do. One of my favorite salads is this grape, green bean, and asparagus salad. It's just really fantastic. And we also have one for a nice chickpea salad. And so you get these flavors that are going and mixing together, and it really can be quite enjoyable having an anti-inflammatory diet. And it's so important now because when you go out to these fast food places and things, most of what you get are going to be inflammatory. Those of you that have been with me for a while, you may have seen this before. Please don't feed the wildlife. Feeding changes their natural behavior and may be harmful to their health. Interesting. So if we feed the wildlife foods that we're supposed to be eating, it can be damaging to them. Well, if it can be damaging to the wildlife, changing their behavior and harmful to the health, couldn't it change our behavior and be harmful to our health? And if we look around, we see a lot of these mental issues coming up, like the anxiety, the depression, just those two alone. A lot of that has to do with what we're consuming. We're creating an inflammatory process in the brain, and we need to settle that down 2 ways. First, remove the inflammation, remove the things that you're consuming that cause inflammation. That's number 1. Number 2, add in foods and supplementation that will help decrease the inflammation. So that's really important. All right. I want to thank you for listening today, for spending a half hour with us. Really appreciate it. I want to close with a little story. When we look around us, there's so many people that are in need, that are in help. And we've been conditioned as a society to run to the allopathic providers. I have this symptom, whatever it is, and we run there and they give us a pill to cover up our symptom. And we're duped into believing we're well because that symptom is covered up. And it's time that we make that change. And we look at elephants. Why I'm talking about elephants? I don't know. It has nothing to do with being away last week, but I want to talk about elephants. When elephants are born into a circus, they take that elephant and they stake it to the ground. And the elephant will pull and tug and pull on that tension, on that tether, and it can't remove it. It just can't. It's not strong enough. That's how all these elephants, or baby elephants, are tethered to the ground. And so the elephant learns, and it walks a circular path around where it's tethered. And it learns it can't pull off that tether. So it believes that it's stuck to that tether and it'll walk that path. Well, as that pachyderm grows up to be 2,000 pounds or bigger, what's going to happen? Well, that long spike that tethers it to the ground can be just a 6-inch spike, because the elephant believes it can't pull it out of the ground, so it stops trying. It has been documented that elephants, right, the largest land animal, have perished in circuses from time to time because of a fire. Right? Why? Because they're tethered to that 6-inch spike that they believe they can't pull out of the ground. And so the elephant just keeps walking around in a circle and doesn't believe it can free itself. We as a society have been tethered to to that 6-inch spike. And what we need to do is pull that tether out. It's time. And stop believing that we have to eat these inflammatory foods and start changing our lifestyles. Not go on a diet. Go on a diet. You want to change your lifestyle, change your eating habits to things that are pro-health, anti-inflammatory. And as you do that, you can break that tether and break free and actually start to enjoy your health, not just today, but for the rest of your life. And so it's so important to be able to do that and understand that at any time, you can change that tether and break free from it. All right, we're done, but you're just getting started. So before I end today, I want to offer everybody out there a gift. If you're out there watching, or you have this video forwarded to you, we'd like to offer you a gift. Today is February 1st, right? Second month of 2020 already. It's crazy how quick it goes. Maybe just slow time down a bit, right? But for the next 4 weeks, right up until the 29th of this month, that's 4 weeks, we're offering everybody who mentions this video a chance to come into our office for a free consultation. You come in, we'll give you our time to discuss with you your health and to see whether or not we feel we can help you improve your health. If we can, we're going to offer a 2-for-1. That is 2 people for the price of 1 evaluation. And so normally, this is a referral. Normally for a referral, we charge $150. That's for a referral. And with this video referral, we're offering 2 people, yourself and somebody you know, to come in for $150 total, half price. And so that's the gift that we'd like to offer you this month, for the month of February. We're checking hearts because February is always about heart health. And we're checking about inflammation, keep inflammation low to preserve your heart. And so break free from that tether. Let us help you become healthier. And I'm Dr. Dave Wendell from Shores Wellness Solution, the Natural Health and Wellness Center. And here we want to be your inspiration for healthy living.